Welcome to the Rooted in Light podcast. I am your host, Tuesday Rivera, and I am here today with a very special guest. Some of you might remember him from our first podcast that we launched with. Some of you just know him in real life. I'm here with my loving husband and life partner and coolest guy in the world, Gibrán Rivera. Gibrán, in his professional life, is a coach, a guide, a facilitator, a teacher, someone who works with groups and individuals on really deep transformation. And the reason I'm having him on today is because Gibrán was actually the person who kind of gently held my hand and it was kind of like, maybe the divine feminine for you. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe. And so he was actually my way into the divine feminine. And I asked him here today to talk with us a little bit about the divine masculine, that we really, well, for many of us, the newest frontier in our own personal journeys is coming into communion with the divine feminine. There is also her counterpart. And that is something we need to be aware of. And so, welcome, my love. And is there anything else you might want to say to introduce yourself?
Well, let me see. I like to say that I am the son of Pedro and Aixa, the big brother of Khalil, Nair, and Janina, the father to Darshan. I co-parent Darshan with Samantha. And one of my favorite titles is husband to Tuesday.
Wonderful. Yes. I not only do I validate and affirm all of those identities, that last one I feel pretty good about. We have just been married just a little over a year now.
That's
What
right.
what a gift. What a
an
gift.
adventure. What a blessing. What a miracle.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So can we just dive right in here?
Sure. Yeah.
Great. So, because you were actually the very first person who, after having been in feminist circles for years and having like a deep understanding of the power of women, the power of women coming together, having strong female friendships, kind of being down for the cause around gender and race for a lot of years, you were the first person to actually talk with me about the divine feminine and the divine masculine and how those roles worked together. How do you tell people the divine masculine? How do you describe it? I can tell you how to describe it to me, but I want to hear you describe it for other folks.
I think we're going to get there as we advance and this podcast appears as great.
Absolutely.
I think before I say that, I do want to say this. I don't know when the podcast is going to be released, but I'm going to turn 50 on Friday. Today's Wednesday, so just a couple of days. And a reason why I bring that up is because as I look back at the blessed, amazing, remarkable life I've been given, when I think about my very worst moments in terms of my own actions, how I've shown up in the world, when I've brought shame upon myself, and you can't get to 50 without doing that, I don't think. But my worst sins have been sins of patriarchy. I want to be very, and they have, my worst sins have been sins of patriarchy. They've always included substances, right? So those two things are important to name because I don't want to stand here all and pretend I am something other that I'm not,
Yeah.
And so that's something that I'm really aware of, and probably why I am so keen on doing this specific work. So a couple of things about the divine masculine. Maybe I'm going to keep dancing around there for a second. Let me say this first. When we talk about the divine masculine, we talk about it in relationship to the divine feminine, right? It doesn't. It's
Yeah.
not a standalone force, right?
Great.
It can't stand alone. Nothing ever happens in the divine masculine. The divine masculine is, at least in the school of spiritual schools that I'm kind of connected to, is emptiness. Is the canvas. Is she is everything that moves. She is the dance. And so there's something about that that is essential. That is that the divine masculine exists in relationship to the divine feminine. But she is the aliveness. She is where everything happens. So the divine masculine, in at our best, provide the right set of conditions. For that sacred feminine to be the force, the life-giving force that it is. So that's one answer. I think if I had to speak further, I would say through the blessings of an initiation that I got just over 20 years ago, a tantric initiation, I had became a devotee of Lord Shiva. And so Lord Shiva is the embodiment of the divine masculine. And I bring up Lord Shiva here because the Lord has many names. And one of the Lord's names is Parvati Pataye, the spouse of Parvati. So he is often known through her and in relationship to her. So that's how I'll begin to answer the question. I want to say a couple of things about the Better Men Project and how it connects to this. But I don't know if there's anything else you want to say before I continue.
I want to say a couple things. One is that Parvati Pataye was in our wedding vows, right?
Ashe.
That is a key part of our relationship. The dance between the divine masculine and the divine feminine is alive and well in our relationship, and we might talk about that later. And I think it's important to say this isn't kind of a modern men's movement, right? This is an ancient kind of understanding of the universe and how it works. It's kind of a deep way of understanding life that has been kind of brought down to us. So it's not. I think there are manifestations that are current, right? And work that is current to be done. But when we talk about this, we're talking about really ancient practices, concepts, ideas around the very nature of life itself.
That's right. That's right. Thank you for saying that. And that's exactly what it is. And I think what just has happened is in the West, I think the Abrahamic traditions, at least on the surface, often miss the divine feminine. And so we end up missing that ancient understanding. And I would say I concur with you. And I think to say to our listeners, our friends, your listeners, our friends here, that what you said about that dance between us, we have been we came to each other in our middle age. We found each other in our middle age.
Yep.
And we find ourselves in a relationship that is so vibrant and so alive, so beautiful. And I would say that both our individual devotions, like how we each hold devotion, and this dance between divine feminine and divine masculine, it's why our relationship worked the way it does, and why it's so vibrant and exciting and fun and pleasurable.
And I think that's part of. I think there can be notions of like, oh, divine feminine and masculine, like deep, spiritual, intense. Yes, 100%, all of those things, but also like fun, playful, like, oh, what you got? There's some permissioning that it gives to just kind of play a little bit that seems real to me. And I remember the first time you kind of explained this to me. You talked about the divine masculine being like banks of a river, and that the divine feminine, is the water. And that the divine masculine is like banks of the river. It helps contain her. It helps helps her flow. It helps, it helps her move in a direction. And there's a way of hearing that can refer right back to patriarchy.
Yeah.
Contains, directs,
Uh-huh. Right.
right?
Right.
Instead, I think that at its best, which I think is part of the misconception, tragedy of patriarchy, right? That direction, that containment has been taken to control and
Yeah.
domination,
Yeah, that's
right?
right. That's right. That's right.
Um, but when I think about the banks of the river help it flow, right? They
Mm-hmm.
actually like give the river, like the river doesn't have to worry about its shape. It's got banks to do that. It can just flow. And there's
Yes.
some real freedom in that as soon
Mm-hmm.
as you described it, I felt excited by. I'm like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
what if I actually could let go of some of this kind of like holding it all together? Because somebody's got me, so I can just go.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love hearing that, and I love knowing that. See, like not just hearing it now, but knowing that as it shows up in our lives. I said relationship. I say the divine masculine exists in relationship. I didn't specify. I think the divine masculine exists in devotional relationship to the divine feminine. I
Mm,
experience from my perspective. If you look at the river, all of the aliveness, all of the action, life is the water, right?
mm,
Everything is happening in the water, right? And so that's the all, and the all is towards her, right? And so
mhm,
in the whole there in the banking is completely in service of
mhm,
that aliveness, and because he wants that, right? He wants to be able to touch that, to hold that, to be with that, to contemplate that, right? Something happens in my own body as I think about it, right? As I kind of imagine the water moving through, something immediately opens inside me as we speak about it. Yeah.
So this is really in service to. That's such an interesting way, right? You direct, you contain in service to, like to make more possible, right? There's something that feels really key there. I was thinking, our teacher, my teacher, Sally Kempton, like when she talks about the way that Shiva came to be, the divine masculine, she says that goddess was, right? She is everything. The divine feminine is everything. And she created God to be a mirror who gazed upon her so she could see her own
Wow.
beauty.
Ashe, that is so beautiful.
I think that is so amazing and so different from how we tend to think about it and how we've constructed gender, right? Which is not what we're speaking about here. We're talking
Not at
about
all.
kind of life energies. But that idea that she is so awesome that she created a way to look back upon herself and named it God. Like that's amazing.
That is pretty gangster. I'm not gonna lie. That is pretty gangster.
Well, and the other thing you carry, and I'd love to, I mean, we'll see what you might have to say about it, is we both know that there are times when the river overruns its banks,
Yeah.
when it says, no, I will have a different way, right? And so there's something there too that I feel like you bring. It's like can you like what would you say about that? Because we know the river does sometimes water will have its way.
Right. I
Life will
mean,
have
I
its way.
I wonder where you're going with it. I'm curious. What comes to me as you ask is, we are born of her, right?
Mhm.
And we return to her. We dive back into
Mm.
her. Um, there's no illusion. There's no delusion as to what is really happening here, right? Everything is her. And so, yeah, like she is fundamentally in charge.
Right.
And when that river overruns his banks, oftentimes sometimes there is destruction. Sometimes, as it was in the Nile,
Mhm.
it makes an entire like season of planting and fertility possible, right? But it is what she wants as she wants, and what he's doing is placing himself in service of that power to hold it, to make it possible, and to allow it to flow. But to get beyond this gender stuff, I'll say I wanted to mention the Better Man Project because, well, first of all, it's coming to a close after
Mm.
many, many years
Yeah.
in just a couple of days too, along with my 50th. But I would start every single meeting with this assertion or this purpose statement, which is, we are here, our job here is to rescue masculinity. There
Mm.
is a well-developed discourse on what toxic masculinity is, but we don't have an understanding on what conscious masculinity is. So the only option that good guys have, if they want to be good, is to take their masculinity and turn it down a couple of notches, right? And so the inquiry of our Better Man Project, and I think of this divine masculine question, is, what does it mean, right, to be the kind of masculine that the world wants,
Mm.
that the world needs, that is in service of this holy feminine energy? Um, what will it take for us to embody the fullness of what we're meant to be, so that the world can experience a masculinity that is conscious and good and beautiful, and not patriarchal and toxic and dangerous. So that's one big thing we say about it.
Well, first, I just want to thank you for your years of doing that work. Just, having been your partner for years and watching you do it for years and watching the men that I know are connected to the Better Men Project, I just want to just thank you for that effort,
Mm.
just to kind of name
Thank
and
you,
honor
thank
that
you,
you've
thank you.
you've really been doing something. And I think, um, as with any good inquiry, we don't actually reach the answer. We
Right.
actually are in the practice. So just kind of like, I love you and I want to thank you for that work.
Oh, thank you. That's very
Mhm.
sweet.
Yeah.
That's very, very sweet.
And I
It means
want
a
to
lot.
ask you, what were some of the things you discovered over the course of this project about what kind of masculinity does the world want and need to be in service? What did you learn together?
I'm gonna answer with a story that's not directly about any of the men, right?
Mhm.
I was in a ceremony once, um, and at the time I was working with a specific medicine, and it was a group ceremony. I was a participant. I was working with one of my teachers. It was a multi-day ceremony, but I remember that at some point I went outside, and that was okay in this context. And outside it was kind of woody. There were woods, and I kind of started running around. I was feeling a little animalistic, and I was kind of, which is not my normal thing, right? And I was like
Uh-huh.
roaring a bit and leaping, and so first I came into like an animal self. Then I remember getting really quiet, really really quiet, and the quiet felt like a hunting kind of quiet, right?
Mm.
And so I just like I wondered, and I look, I don't want to stir up any trouble. I know that there's all kinds of questions about the assumptions of gender roles and all of that, and that's not what
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to push here. But this was just like the archetypal vision, let's call it that. And I just kind of felt the kind of quietness that the masculine often kind of goes back to, right? Men can get
Mhm.
really quiet, and in a at its worst, it can be shutting down and a holding back and a not knowing how to express. And so much of what we were doing in the Betterment Project was creating space for us to hold each other,
Mhm.
so that we could express. And one of the goals of that was to become better, but also for too many men. So when I was doing the research before launching the project, I learned two things. I learned that men uh, don't have don't tend to have relationships with other men,
Mhm.
and that they don't have access to the full range of human emotion. And we
Mhm.
naturally would, but the culture keeps it away, right?
Right.
And so these are men specifically in our culture. So so then our partners, if we have women partners, except for masculine identified men, that's what the Better Men Project was for. Our partners, our feminine partners, often become the only people that hold our emotions, right? That we can trust. And so, like, by creating a space where we could be that with each other, the idea was to lighten the burden on our partners, right? And to start to turn towards one another for that kind of work. But in that something else happened that I think gets us to another part of the divine masculine is, then in that quiet, I had a vision. And the vision was of like a group of martial artists. And in this vision, they were like Asian, right? Like, and there was something so graceful about the moves, right? And like part of what I gathered from this like martial artist piece was like the kind of reintegration of the feminine while staying in the masculine, right? So like you could have this dancing, beautiful grace, right? And remain like solidly in the masculine, on the masculine. So I think part of it is that too, right? Like knowing her inside yourself as well.
That's right. Oh, that's so good. And actually I just wrote myself a note that was like, we are somehow, just for the sake of this conversation, right? Like we're kind of pulling apart the masculine and feminine just for clarity. But of course, it's happening inside each of us all of the time.
Right.
All of the time.
That's right.
And Lord Shiva is also known as the Lord of the Dance, right?
Yes, right.
And I think many people who are attracted to men, whatever their gender, would tell you that a man dancing, like really dancing and letting the rhythm through his body is a sight to behold, right? Is actually like a beautiful, I mean, I don't know that most people would use this. I'm going to use this language because we're in this topic, but a beautiful kind of manifestation of kind of the masculine holding stillness, strength, and the beautiful feminine movement, dynamism at the same time. It's like a complex interplay.
Right. Right. And the dance floor is a great and beautiful place to witness that dance because, the man can dance, right? But if he's dancing with her, right, that kind of holding and creating the space, right, for her to manifest and to move. So like in the Caribbean, we have very gendered dancing, right? And we have different roles in that dance, right? And so there is something that happens where like one of us the masculine is holding, right? And the feminine is doing this other thing, right? And it is in that difference, right? That the eros is vibrant,
That's right. That's right. Okay, we're gonna go there in a minute because we have to, right? I mean, I think it feels kind of in some ways like the unspoken piece when we talk about the divine masculine and feminine. But I want to stay for a moment on how we have both inside us, and in fact, both need to be expressed.
That's right.
Whatever your gender identity, that both of these energies need to be expressed, and we may have one that we have more of a kinship with or an ease with. I'm thinking about a time at Burning Man with you and I, actually, friends. So we've been to Burning Man together, and in Burning Man, the art, much of the art is on a place called the Playa, which is a wide open space, right? And at night, things come alive. Right, everything is self-lit up. So you're looking at artwork that has lights lit up and music. There are like these cars that go and blast music, and there's music all around. And like, so there's art and there's light and there's beauty and there's people on this place called the Playa. And you and I were together and you really wanted to go toward that. You were like, let's go in. And I was like, I would like to go on the outside and kind of watch it from afar.
Uh-huh.
And it occurred to me, I think in that moment, I actually said to you, like, that, the lights, the music, the people, that's happening in my head all the time, right? Like, that never stops. I could use a little like holding, a little distance, a little of that. I want to, in the midst of all of this dynamism, I want to hold and not be
Uh-huh.
in. Um,
Uh-huh.
do you remember that
I
moment?
do. I very much so, because I made the suggestion and you mainly started laughing, and then gave me the deep insight.
but
So
did
I
it but
very
did
much
it
remember.
but did it
Yes, it
land
made
for you?
perfect sense. It made perfect sense. It was almost like I by being in the deeper playa, we were in a very masculine space, right?
Mhm,
In that kind of emptiness,
mhm.
and uh, and so my attraction was towards her fullness, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And because I think and I think I kind of got here because I think that you have a real tendency, like just kind of
Mhm.
naturally to the divine masculine. Like you're a meditator, right?
Mhm.
You tend to hold people, right? You tend to have a bit of a sword cut in your interventions, right? Like
Mhm.
I just say all the time, like, how do you speak so clearly? Like just like you just
Mhm.
say things. Whereas which I think has tends toward an expression that's more feminine, have more words around. I am midwifing things. I'm helping things. I'm less sword cut, more mid. Although I know you're my partner, you experience a sword cut. I, I also have a masculine.
I was gonna say.
I tend to be a little more uh, like the movement. The
Yeah.
movement is more where even my first ways of meditating had to be moving meditation. I still dance, right? Like that is really chanting is a easier access into stillness to me than simply sitting. And so we each have our own kind of general ways in, but we
Right.
all have both. Like it would
Right.
just be wrong to think that that a healthy, cultivated divine masculine isn't met with the divine feminine.
Right. It just so happens, right, that you and I found each other through grace, through her grace, really.
Mhm.
And I and we happen to be people where I identify. I'm a heterosexual man that identifies with my masculine energy. You're a heterosexual woman that identifies with your feminine energy more, and so that just happens to be where you and I are. But people are anywhere along these spectrums, anywhere in any gender, right? So, but what I will say is that as much holding, as much as I think our relationship thrives in our kind of intentionally, like sometimes amplifying those roles, right? Just like, all right, like, so like very intentionally, like I'm gonna sit in my masculine, right? I'm gonna stand in my masculine, and you like standing your feminine, and like that makes this kind of delicious dance that we get to play, and it kind of seeps through our days in this beautiful way. It is by being in deep relationship with you, in my most, where I am most vulnerable, where I'm learning to become most receptive,
Hmm.
right? Which is right where it's like it's still like a learning curve for me
Mhm.
to allow myself to to be held
Yeah.
and to receive, and so I am learning all of that in the context of our relationship, um, and the sacredness of our relationship. And so I even though our relationship thrives in this kind of polarity that we get to play with,
Mhm.
um, it comes into wholeness as each of us, as certainly as I, um, allow, and come into, right, for some of those more feminine attributes. Yeah.
100%. And I think I was just thinking, and because of because of the relationship, and I think if I think about who's listening or folks that are listening, I want to throw out an idea and see if this lands for you. Um, I feel like in some ways our relationship is like a little breadcrumb trail to your own vulnerability, right? Like it's like oh, you can come here, right? Like you can do that. And vice versa, I think our relationship is a little breadcrumb trail to my actual like more uprightness and more holding.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
not that I don't hold, and most of us do, especially women, like we hold our kids, we hold our husbands, it's not that there's not holding, but I feel like your little breadcrumb trail has led to moments where I'm like, wait, this is what it's like? Like this kind of feeling of like, I can do this, I am born to do this, and not, it is not taking from me. It is actually, um, me being in alignment with
Mm-hmm.
life. I keep using life just um, to be more general, but I can think of those moments where I actually felt I think that I have in my life, of course, had masculine in this manner, masculine attributes, build a business, build a family, all those things. But it has come with and I wanted to ask you about this earlier. It is in some ways it has come with a sense of burden
Mm.
or like um a giving out more than I receive.
Yeah,
And I feel like the breadcrumb trail that this relationship that you've led me into is like a masculine holding that actually feels fucking fantastic.
that's right. That's right. That's right. Well, I think that bird. I mean, I don't want to overstate, but as I think about you and other incredible women in my life, a lot of that burden is like it's just being laid on you, right? Like in order
Mm.
to like thrive or quote unquote thrive, that's not thriving. In order to make it in this patriarchal structure, you're it is asked of you that you overdraw on that masculine
Mhm.
energy, right? It's like so you continually having to like play into that, and it cannot be life-giving that way,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like it's almost like being like forced into it in a way, and I feel like I feel incredibly alive, when I can embody the divine masculine. I feel purposeful. I feel connected. I feel in service. I feel powerful. I feel love. Right. All of those are the energies that I feel when I'm embodying it. And thinking about the divine. I know a lot of the work you do here has to do with the goddess. Right. I
Mhm.
have a devotional relationship to her, but on the surface, what you'll hear me worship, and you do because you hear me all the time, and I'm quite expressive, right? But I am in direct relationship with my Lord and my God, right? And my relationship to Him is a relationship of surrender, of
Mm.
submission, of service, right? Of
Mm.
like whatever you demand and whatever you ask and whatever you say, that's what I want to serve, right?
Right.
That's what I am longing, my heart's longing, right? Is to know your will, right? And to have the power to carry it out. So it is actually, so
Mm.
my devotion to my God, it takes on that shape. But amazingly, in that process, I get remarkably invigorated, right? I come
Uh-huh.
alive, right? I come alive because I have that. I'm held myself, right? I know I am
Ah.
protected, right? I
Mm.
know who I belong to.
Well, I really want you just to keep talking right now. Just to say out loud,
This
okay.
is
Okay. That was
Can we
nice.
close? Is it a good time to close? You are right there. You're right there.
That's right. We are just 2 doors away from each other. We are 2 doors away from each other. Okay, so we are gonna close soon, but since we just had this moment, I do want to ask you about and you just answered so beautifully, because as you talk about, like, the relationship to God, it's like there is, like, almost like and I don't think you're afraid of it, like there's a hierarchy. There's her,
Yes.
right? Like she's everything. But my question was going to be, how do you relate to being in the subservient position? But I guess you really just said that, like it feels invigorating because you are held. But I want to ask you, because you, I think, and I suspect that the men who work with you, I've got two more things before we leave now. They think about
No,
it.
I'm not. I
Yeah.
was playing. I mean, I
No,
saw how you
I know
got,
what you
and
want to get to. I know what you want to get to. But you like it is a submissive, it is a let me do your will, let me turn my life over. And yet you do still, I want to bring in, like you bring in sword cuts. You bring in assertion,
Mhm.
maybe not aggression. I'm going to share this with people. This book, it is called The Subject Tonight is Love, was the very first book you bought me. Like you walk through the world with some clarity, right? Which doesn't, like, can you feel the thing I'm trying to bridge
Yeah,
here?
I think so. But let's kind of keep putting our way into it. But I do think that clarity is a core attribute of the divine masculine, right? But think about it.
Got it.
If we're
Got
talking
it.
about if we look at it as emptiness, right? It's clear,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's
Right.
right. It's clear, and that's part of what you're bringing, a clear seeing. Lord Shiva has his third eye, right, that can see and pierce, right, and destroy.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, I mean, I don't know that I have a lot to say about it right now. Right now, it's a force. We have a weird relationship with destruction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's this kind of this, and that there has to be creation. Creation has to be sustained, and then it has to be destroyed so that the divine cycle can continue on its way, right? And so there's something about the inevitability, right, that of it all coming to an end, that
Mm-hmm.
I think allows us to honor that, um, and to know that it's actually also dangerous, But it's not less dangerous than it is, that the holy feminine can destroy, and thus, right,
And does.
and thus.
So I had a coaching client today. I haven't told you this yet, but I had a coaching client today who said that her new partner, that he met you and was like just in love with you. And like, she's like, here's the thing that happens. All the women in the circle want to send their partners to Gibrán. She's like, that's what's happening. They all want to send their partners to Gibrán. And I was like, that makes sense to me. And I'm curious what you are, because not only did she say it, I have seen it to be true. I see the people in
Mhm.
and out of our house and in and out of your life. And so I'm curious, and we will, I think, wrap up here because I want people to know how to find you. And this is part of it.
Mhm.
I'm curious what you're doing for these men.
Mm.
What do they bring to you and what do you give?
Mhm. Mhm. Well, again, I want to kind of take a step back and just remind us of where we started, right? It's the only way here for me has been,
Hmm.
too much of it has been through like experiencing the suffering that I have caused in the world
Yeah.
through my more patriarchal behavior.
Yeah.
And like, and every time I have felt that I have kind of come, like, okay, did that, you know what I mean? No, I'm reminded that this damn thing is insidious, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to present myself as something that I am not, right? I think
Great.
it's really important. There is a And it is my effort to atone, right? It is my effort
Mm.
to make things right. I think that brings us here. And one of the things I hope to do with many of these men is truly honor them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
my what I hope to bring is somebody that can fully respect their sovereignty, right?
Mhm.
Their masculinity, right? Who they are and want to be, right? So that they know that that's honor, that I'm not trying to top them, right? Which is
Mhm.
how men often know how to relate to each other, right? And from there, then I can bring what has been given to me, right? Then I can offer that, right? But I think creating a space that says you are honored and respected here,
Mhm.
you are honored and respected here. I'm not here to try and uh, and top you in some way, right? I think it's an essential part of it, uh, and to do it in a way, I think in a binary system, you either top or submit.
Right.
I'm not
Right.
here. I think they for them to trust me, right? They also gotta trust that I'm not that they're not that if they that I'm not easily topable either, right?
Right.
And I
Right.
think that then makes for a relationship where we can then get to the tender because so much of the
Mm.
dynamic interplay can settle, right? The kind of conditioned interplay of masculinity can settle, and like a new possibility can open.
Mm. Mm.
I mean, I hope the brothers hear this and they can, if you're hearing this, guys, give me the feedback if you think otherwise, but that's at least what I'm going for.
Great. And you do this through a number of things. It's been the Betterments projects, but you host men's journeys, you work with men in coaching. There are a lot of things you do that is implicitly or explicitly around the divine masculine.
Mhm.
Um, can you tell people a little bit about how to find you? Maybe
Yeah.
if they hear this and they're like, "Hey, I'd like to know more." How would they find you?
Yeah. Well, the easiest way is GibranRivera.com. That's my website. It needs an update, an upgrade and an update, but that's my website. And I love for people to stay in touch with me through my newsletter, which is at Substack. It's called Future Ancestors, but you find
Mm.
it through my name too, Gibrán Rivera. So that would be the way.
Wonderful. And I just encourage people. I have a deep resentment about my husband and how well he writes and how quickly he writes. I'm like, oh, wow, how did that happen? But his newsletter is not to be missed. And I see him write it and I'm like, what? Lots of good brilliance there. Lots of good brilliance there. It's a deep resentment, but it's like deep gratitude for what you do. I should, before I go, like, is there anything else you would want to say about the divine masculine or what you'd like to convey about any of this kind of conversation?
um, well, I'll say that even though patriarchy makes us dominant, um, it it is devastating on our
Mm,
souls.
mm,
Um, Sometimes you think like whoever's on top has got it,
mm-hmm,
but it's actually devastating on our souls and on our human experience. And this kind of connection with the divine masculine allows us to return home
mm,
to ourselves. So I think part of it is and so part of it is like, of course, keep the boundaries and the protection for the people that are listening, but also to have some compassion. Like
ah,
we are this nightmare, this conditioned nightmare of a situation, is breaking us, has broken us, and limited us. And so compassion is really would be it's usually a better way to get somebody to listen and
mm.
to grow uh, compassionate care. And I think the other thing I'll say is that I am delighted to live in ongoing adoration of you.
Oh, you're the best. You're the best. This is I always want to say to people like this is for real. Just like those of you who see Gibran and I together, those of you who just seeing us together now, like this is how he is, right? This is like in constant devotion um to the divine and and uh and willing to see that in his partner. And I'm very, very, very grateful. And have no fear. Jabron's going to be on here regularly. So this is not the last time you're going to hear from him. I've got him on a regular schedule here. He'll be bringing in this perspective. I think the next one we're going to do is on Eros, by the way. So that should be fun. Mhm, mhm. That should be fun. And also just happy 50th birthday, my love. Oh my goodness. You are just the best thing in the whole world. Um, thank you. So you can find the podcast. We're on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, all the places. I think this is, people always say, rate, review. Yeah, that's great. Please do all the things that get more people to listen to this, but also just share it with folks. If this was a good episode for you, just share it with people. We'd love to get a little wider audience. You can always get us at podcast@tuesdayrivera.com if you've got questions or you want to give feedback or you want to say anything. We are right here coming to you every other Tuesday. Thank you all so much. Mwah.